Hey revolutionaries, thanks again for subscribing, downloading, or streaming and listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. And I wanted to announce today that Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast can now be found on Spotify. It's distributed on Spotify. So those of you who are Spotify users will be able to easily find it now. And this just occurred, haven't even announced it on Twitter or on the Facebook page at all. So it's hot off the presses right here on this episode. So thanks again for listening. I have a shout out this week that came from Rich, and it came through my email. So you can find my contact information on the website, jimsreinventionrevolution.com. And Rich says, "That was an awesome and inspiring interview. I enjoyed listening." Yeah, thanks, Rich. I got this right after the release of episode 17 with Sam Blakesley. And thanks also, Rich, for commenting on the Facebook page. So I see that Rich is one of the folks that comments from time to time on that. And if you're wondering where to find that, you can go to facebook.com/Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. I know it's a long name, but long handle, but that's where you can find it. Shifting gears to the cryptocurrency world for a second, Bitcoin Cash, which is an altcoin, an alternative to Bitcoin, is now available on Coinbase. So if you're interested in checking that out, you can go to my resources page and click on my Coinbase affiliate link, jimsreinventionrevolution.com/resources. Look for that for more information. And speaking of investing and personal finance in general, I'm excited to bring you this week's episode with Sean Merron, where we talk about how he's on track to retire at 35. So I think he's 31 right now. He's got an amazing story how he's re-engineered and reinvented his lifestyle in order to do this. And he's got a wife and 2 kids. It's very interesting. And we touch on Bitcoin a bit, and you can hear his thoughts about why he doesn't invest in Bitcoin. All these decisions are very personal, and he's building this personal finance community, which you'll hear about. So can't wait to get to the episode. So here it is.
Welcome to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit jimsreinventionrevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim.
Hi everybody, hey, this is Jim, and welcome to episode 18 of Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. And I'm talking today with Sean Merron, who realized he needed to reinvent his approach to life and has given himself what he calls a lifestyle overhaul. So Sean, welcome to the revolution.
Hey Jim, awesome to be here.
Hey, well, thanks so much for taking time out of your day, and I'm glad we had finally have a chance to hook up since FinCon, because it's been, like we were talking earlier, man, we got slammed. What was your word for it? You were like overwhelmed, or how did you describe it?
I'm still detoxing from it.
That's it. You're still detoxing, which is the perfect word because, man, I feel the same way. It's been weeks ago now, and I'm still detoxing, and that's how you know it's a good show, I think, because it's like I got so many ideas and so many contacts and so like motivated, fired up, like, oh my God, why haven't I been doing this or that? Or it just really opened up a lot of worlds for me. And I just kind of went on a whim to learn more about podcasting and blogging and such. But the personal financial part started to really resonate with me, because I've always been an investor, and, I'm on my way to, early retirement too, which we'll talk about in a second. I would really want to hear your thoughts on that. So it was just a really cool thing for me, and it was my first time there, so it was just wild. So that was your first time also?
Yeah, that's right. It was my first time, and yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I had been to conferences before, but in the software engineering space, which is my primary trade, which we'll probably talk more about here in a little bit. So this was my first kind of conference outside of that, and yeah, it was just I went for 3 days of just nonstop, the minute I woke up to the minute I went to bed. So I walked away. I mean, there were 1,700 people that I think attended or at least tickets sold.
Right.
And I walked away with at least 100 business cards. I know that. So following up with everyone, took a while. And
Definitely.
I run a podcast as well, as you know, and that booked us out till July. So
yeah,
got a lot of awesome content.
That's incredible, man. I just love it because it was such a great feeling just being there, meeting all these people. And that's interesting. So your background's technical, which mine's in engineering, physics and optics and such. Not software, but hardware stuff. But you had been to other technical trade shows?
That's right. And so I'm originally from Virginia Beach on the East Coast. So right now I'm in Austin, Texas.
Gotcha.
But when I was out there, I became really involved in the software engineering community out there, and eventually ran some local meetups and got involved with some other meetups. And we ended up somehow running conferences. I've gone to a few industry conferences in the region over there, but then we actually started running some ourselves. So it was really cool to get to know the behind the scenes and then go to another conference just in a different industry and kind of see how well it was done. I mean, FinCon is a really well done conference, large scale. Of course, it's personal finance, so that's where all the money is.
Yeah, right.
They have the opportunity to do pretty well.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious about if you had been to the larger sort of corporate scene type of conferences, which I've been to. Too many to even count. Like big corporation. Like the big automotive shows and big Society of Automotive Engineering shows and OFC, optical fiber communication shows on the West Coast, and all these type of big, industry trade shows at McCormick Center or the Javits Center in New York, those kind of things.
Yeah, I've never actually been to anything, I guess, which is coined a trade show.
Okay.
I've heard of those all the time.
Yeah.
So I've been more to just conferences, I guess, which are more about training and education.
Right, I got you. Yeah, these things are these massive shows are large, and they're a combination of both trade show and conference. But to me, being in the corporate world for a long time, it was such a breath of fresh air going to FinCon, just in the contrast of everybody's working together and interested in, really raising each other up. They're not so focused on competition. Those other big shows kind of get distracted on the competition a lot, versus focusing on what they're creating.
I noticed that completely, and that's one of the things I love about this personal finance space is, everybody's just wanting to work together. And, our ultimate goal is to reach more people and help more people. And then I think that's what people kind of realize. It's not about competition. The more we try and work against each other, we're not going to get anywhere doing that. But if we join forces, we can reach more people and, improve the personal finance situation of the world, hopefully.
Right. Oh, absolutely. So one more thing before we move off of FinCon. It was just funny. Like I remember when this is before I got to FinCon, and the reason that you stood out to me was that before you got there, you sent out an email you must have sent out to, I don't know, the whole list. I don't know even how you got a hold of the list. Maybe you can tell me that. But in the email was this video of you speaking directly to me, at least I thought. And you're like, "Hey, how's it going? My name's Sean. I really want to, connect with you and work with people when I get there." And I thought it was kind of, something I hadn't seen before. And when I first saw it, I thought, man, who is this? Who's this joker? Like, who sends a video email like this? And maybe it's just because I'm not in the FinCon world, or maybe it's just new, or I just missed this part of what's really happening in society. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, man, this guy's onto something. This was like a little genius move that you had of sending out a pre-email to everybody, and it was a video of you talking, saying, "Hey, let's connect." How did you come up with that idea?
Yeah, it kind of was like a light bulb moment. So FinCon, they actually provide their list of all the attendees on a website. It's really kind of hard to shift through everything. Right. And I actually asked PT, the founder of FinCon, if, hey man, because it was just name and site, I think, at first, like URL. And so it was really hard for me to tell who I wanted to connect with. So I actually asked him to if he could add some additional information about people to their, like, what kind of, if they're a podcaster, if they're just a blogger, et cetera, or what kind of space they're in. He did that. And then I downloaded that and actually just I did filter out. At first I was just going, from the top to the bottom, and before I asked him that, and I was like, there's people on here that, might be vendors or, other people attending that I'm not really looking to connect with. I really wanted to connect with other podcasters like yourself because I love talking. Other people in the industry that love talking. I feel we could work well talking together about certain things. So I filtered that list by podcasters, and that's who I kind of reached out to at first. And there's a few bloggers I kind of skimmed through, and there's some that I'd been wanting to connect with. Mm-hmm. So I also kind of approached them as well. So at first, I just emailed everybody and said, because there was just so many people I wanted to connect with, and it would be impossible to set up meetings, to schedule with everybody.
Right.
If there was a few like really key connections, then I could do that. But I really wanted to get to meet a lot of people. So I know everybody would probably be really interested in a kickoff party that the conference was showing. So I really was trying to let everybody know ahead of time, hey, if you want to, come find me at the kickoff party. And by doing so, I was like trying to give people an idea of what I look like. I was like, I'll be the tall guy,
right.
long hair, and a Too Frugal Dude shirt. And I was like, you know what? Let me just create a video like that people will know exactly who to look for. And they can kind of get to like know my personality or see if they really, we mend well, or if they really want to meet me. Maybe they don't, and that's fine because some people didn't. Right. And I was like, let me just do that. And let's see what happens. So I created that video, just introducing myself, not only to actually, I reused that video. That's the first time I created it, but not only introduce myself to everybody at FinCon, but then also now I actually use it to introduce myself just to on Twitter or, to new people I find online. I'll send them that video as well. Just say, hey, this, so they can kind of like feel and get to know me before they decide they want to go further along with me. But you knew exactly who to look for, hopefully.
Absolutely. Well, I recognized you on the floor. So like I ran into you and we're just talking. I think it was just in a group of people when I first met you. And then I realized, oh my God, you're the dude from the video. So it stuck with me, So I was like, all right, maybe there's something more to this guy. I need to talk to him a little bit more and see what else is going on in his head, because no, it's really creative, interesting thing. And so I thought like, wow, that's cool. It's someone to definitely connect with. So speaking about that, let's rewind a little bit because you have this history of being kind of a different thinker, and I think that's very interesting to me in terms of really what's going on today, like that people really have to kind of start thinking differently for themselves if they haven't been already, because, things are moving fast with technology and different business models and even the educational system and such. So, and you've got such a very interesting story about dealing with a different approach to life and realizing, hey, maybe at one point you thought you were going to do one thing and then you had to, like really sit back and reassess and maybe do an overhaul of your whole lifestyle. So let's rewind back to when you're in high school and kind of coming out, and how do you get started out in the working world?
Yeah, that's probably where it all starts. That taking a different path than quote unquote normal people should take to kind of start their career. And I'm thankful to my mom for this, because in high school, we were offered to go to a trade school. And traditionally trade schools, you learn some kind of vocational skill like plumbing or like being an electrician, a plumber, right? Maybe a beauty, different kinds of things in that trade. But the trade school was actually offering technology trades or skills and certifications as well. And my mom thought this would be a great opportunity for me. And I didn't want to go.
Oh, really? Okay.
I actually did. Yeah, I did not want to go at first. I was more concerned about having my lunch block my junior and senior year of high school so I could hang out with my friends.
Well, that's a normal thought process of a kid back then, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, I talked about it with my mom, and she didn't have to pull my arm too hard before I was like, okay, because I really actually did enjoy computers. I had been gaming for a while before then and trying to build some of my own computers. But so my junior and senior year of high school, I went to a computer networking class half a day every day. And I was able to get my Cisco Certified Network Associate, CCNA, which is a computer networking, routing, and switching certification out of that school.
Right.
And on my own, from some of the knowledge I gained, I went and also got my A+ certification. And some of the cool things that this school also did outside of just the basic training was they brought people in from the real world that were already in their careers, right. And they would when they would come in and talk to us about their jobs, they would give us kind of shortcuts and tips. And I always remember going up to each one of those persons, shaking their hand, and getting their business card. And after I graduated with those certifications, I called one of them up, and what do you know, he had a position open for a tech support. So I was able to use my computer troubleshooting and networking skills to land a $40,000 a year job at the age of 17.
Wow, $40,000 a year. So had you even graduated from high school yet? At 17, or are you still in, or just graduated probably?
I just graduated, exactly. Yeah,
right, okay.
I turned 18 later in that year.
Uh-huh.
I was one of those that had the birthday in December, and somehow my parents got me in early, and I didn't have to get held back or anything.
I gotcha. Wow, that's incredible. And was that was part of the training or the what they offered you in terms of just connecting and kind of the career path stuff? They wanted you to meet these kind of folks, so you had this pathway when you got out of that program, right?
Yeah, exactly. They wanted us to meet them, and now but I guess it ultimately depended on you, though.
Right, sure.
Out of that classroom, there was probably about 25 people, I think, that started on that class my junior year. When we graduated, I think there was only about 15 people left in the class, and only 3 of us got certified.
Oh, wow. Class. That's interesting.
So it was very difficult. Yeah. So it was very difficult. I mean, I guess you kind of had to be a self-starter. And I think once I realized that, I don't have to go the traditional, go to college, and route to get the career I want. I already could get it was very obtainable. People were coming into our class and showing us it was, that we could do something different and get a job and start my career very early. And I'm very thankful I did, because I was able to mature earlier, learn a lot of the mistakes earlier of having a good income as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because when you're 17, 17, think about that. $40,000 a year. I mean, that's some good money. And you don't maybe at this point understand the value of the money that you're making. You're just thinking like, man, this is happening. Let's party. That's kind of what you felt, right?
That's absolutely kind of how I felt with that. It was the first time in my life I really made a lot of money, and all my friends around me didn't have that opportunity. So when we were going out, I was the one driving, I was the one buying the drinks, I was the one doing a lot of things. And
right.
At the age of 19, I decided, hey, I need a brand new BMW. So I went out.
That's classic, man.
Living at home, I went out and bought a $50,000 BMW with an $800 a month car payment. Yeah,
wow.
That was
ouch. Me. So how does that work? So you have the BMW, but you still live at home. So like, you can pick up girls all of a sudden, but you still got to bring them back home. That's a little awkward.
Yeah, it was a little awkward. I guess it didn't matter though, because kind of all my friends were still living at home too at that age, and so were they. So it wasn't like I was old enough to, I guess, where living at home still mattered.
Right. That's true. How funny.
But yeah, now looking back, I'm like, it's really not that cool to have a loan on a BMW. Really not.
Yeah, no. Not at that age, because you're like, what's it really doing for you or whatever. I mean, it's fun to drive around, right? But so what were you thinking? So you stayed working at this software tech job, right? And so what happened next from then?
Yeah. So luckily, I started early. I was making good money, and but the problem was I wasn't saving money. I was spending a lot of it, as we just talked about.
Right.
And even though I had this opportunity to save from a very young age, I didn't know it at the time. And probably so, my wife and I, when we started planning to buy a house, we were probably around 24 or so when we started really thinking about it. And that's for the first time in my life we actually thought about how much. We looked and we were like, we have like no savings. I've been making good money now for almost 7 years, and have nothing to show for it. Just been spending it away, and I lived at home.
Wow. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So the first time we really just actually opened up our bank account and realized how much money we were spending on all the dining out and everything, how much it was really adding up. And we actually wanted to save for a house. And the first time we opened up a notepad together, and we just said, okay, we make this much money, let's limit ourselves to spend this much a week. And we tried doing that, and we just saw, oh my gosh, how fast we were able to build up savings. And that's when I realized the opportunity that we had so I don't even know, like, people that get out of their, so it was like I probably went to college really and got a career, and then started actually saving money. Right. But I had the opportunity to maybe learn those mistakes a little earlier, rather than someone that just got out of college maybe at that age and still had to kind of figure that out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. There's people in their 30s that are just figuring that out. They got out of school, maybe they went to grad school, now they're into their work career for 3-4 years and realizing, yeah, they're just starting to think about it. So that is kind of a cool advantage maybe that you had in terms of thinking differently and taking that job right from high school. It sort of matures you in a different way, at least along these sort of financial life paths in that way.
Yeah, and then we actually got the house, and we started kind of living that typical American dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
So get the house, get the dog, get the cat. Let's go get married. Let's put a pool in the backyard.
Cool. Wow.
And then we started having kids.
Okay. So the finance thing starts to creep up one more time, right?
Yeah. So I'm an entrepreneur really at heart. And we were getting closer to 30, or really we were probably still about 26, 27, kind of over that bump, right? So we knew it's coming. And,
right.
And I've always on the side kind of worked on these little, entrepreneur startup companies of my own. and it's just been in me, and
Right.
so early on in my career, I kind of had the time to do that. I would do it outside of my full-time job on nights and weekends, and I constantly kind of going from one new idea to the next. Though I never really focused on one, and because they didn't take off initially, and now I'm getting to the point where I'm almost 30, and I'm like, I have like no time anymore to work on these side ideas because the complexity in my life now has just added up. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's not money as much as it is time too.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought this 4-bedroom, 2,500 square foot house just for the two of us initially.
Wow, that's a
so we're
big
having
house.
to keep up with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're having to mow the backyard. We got to take care of the pool. We got, a dog to walk and take care of. We got this cat, and we have our 2 cars as well, the BMWs. That's
Right.
not cheap when I got to do stuff on it. And also, we're both working full-time jobs, and now we have these 2 kids. So like it is just overwhelming, like the amount of time I had, free time, to start to actually work on my entrepreneur dreams anymore was slim to none.
Right.
And I was like, you know what, I'm facing the reality now that we're probably actually, I don't know why, but I always had this in the back of my mind that one of these business ideas would kind of start, kick off, and by the time I'm 30 I'd be a millionaire. I really thought that.
Right.
And I just had that realization that, you know what, it's not going to happen.
Right. A lot of people think that. Yeah.
And that's what kind of led me down the road to figuring out I need kind of a backup plan. I needed some other way to kind of live my entrepreneurial lifestyle. I need some way to be able to leave the workforce and not have to take a huge amount of risk. I have a family now, right? I can't just do what they do on Shark Tank. Some people either get laid off or fired, which I do well at my job, so that's hopefully not going to happen. And
Right.
or they just get up and quit, and go start these companies, and the failure rate of companies is extremely high.
Yep.
So I couldn't do that. I wasn't willing to accept that. So I need some kind of backup plan. And that's when I discovered the concept of early retirement. Luckily, around that same time, like 26, 27.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been saving some money. I already had some money in my 401k because I remember in the past, being taught to put in what the company matches. So,
Sure.
And I was able to do that from the age of 17. So I had some money building up in there. But then I was just able to figure out like, hey, it is possible from a middle-class income to stash away enough savings to pay for our expenses for the rest of our life. I didn't know that was possible before. I didn't know I could access these long-term retirement accounts
Right.
through before 60. And once I discovered that I could, and we just kind of did everything in our life. We had a huge lifestyle overhaul to kind of do whatever we could to try and speed up that early retirement number as much as possible.
Right. Well, let's unpack that a little bit. So, what do you mean when you're talking about early retirement? Like, how did you discover what that meant? Like, how did you figure out how to run the numbers? And what do you mean by accessing your retirement accounts to do that?
Sure. Yeah. So I remember initially being, I think this is where the inspiration goes back. I mean, my kids were kind of the inspiration, but
Right.
and the complexity, but actually discovering early retirement and the numbers. I remember reading like a Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Workweek book in the past, and somehow that led me to Reddit.com and the Financial Independence subreddit and Mr. Money Mustache and all these, this whole community that's been out there that I never knew about.
Right.
And I mean, you kind of, there's information out there, but there's like hundreds and thousands of blog articles and things to read through. So it's not necessarily, just like here's the blueprint, right? And that's the thing with personal finance. It's completely personal.
Right.
So no one, I don't care, financial advisor, robo-advisor, nothing can tell you what to do because you have to figure out and educate it based on your own situation.
That's right.
And that's what I had to do. So I just started, typing up like the things we're going to do in our life to retire early. And that to me meant get enough money into our investments to where they can passively pay for our expenses for the rest of our life.
Right.
And there was some calculators out there to try and help determine that for you. But the problem with some of these calculators is they required all these like really like mundane fields and like it was like you need to know all these different complex percentages. And I was like, I only need to know 5 things. I need to know how much money I already have, how much money I already have, what age I am, how much return I'm going to get in my investments,
Right.
and how much my expenses are every year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can determine what age I can retire at. So I actually created a spreadsheet to do that. And I used to share it on Reddit with people and they liked using it. And the problem with that is that you can't really they have to download it and you make changes and they don't have the latest download and all that. So I actually just said, screw it, I'm just going to go ahead and put this out on a website. And that's where I created fireagecalc.com, which is just 5 simple fields to do that. So I use that. That's the math that I use to determine at what age I could retire early. And I just kind of made that available for anyone to use whenever they like to do their own estimates. So going back to how I figured out that I could access my long-term retirement accounts before the age of 60. I remember an article I stumbled on, asking this question, because before I was trying to figure out how much money would I need in my taxable brokerage account investments to last me until I was 60 before I can access the long-term ones. So I was really trying to figure out, taxable money that I could invest to last long enough. And then someone was like, you don't have to do that. There's this thing called the Roth IRA conversion ladder. And what that entails is basically when you retire early, you're in the lowest income tax bracket. So you're no longer in this high tax bracket. So you're now in the lowest one.
Right.
So when we at 35, you decide to pull the ripcord. At that point, we can start transferring or converting money from our 401ks and rollover and traditional IRAs over to Roth IRAs. And when you do that kind of rollover, you get taxed on the earnings. So, but the thing is, you get taxed in the lowest tax bracket, and you probably have other deductions, being a family or being in a low income bracket, that you'll pay close to nothing in those rollover taxes, maybe at most a few $100. Right. So it really doesn't affect the value of your portfolio much. Now I'll still have some taxable money because I haven't been putting everything in retirement accounts, because there's this 5-year rule between when you retire and you can start accessing the Roth IRA money that's been converted. So I have to kind of have taxable money for the time in between. There's some great articles out there on that, like Justin from rootofgood.com. He did a great write-up on the Roth IRA conversion ladder. But that's when a light bulb went off in my head, boom.
Right.
Holy crap, I can access these accounts early. And once I knew that, I started maxing them out like crazy, like 401ks and IRAs, because taxes are your biggest cost no matter what. So any tax advantage accounts that I just started unloading on them, because the amount of wealth you can accumulate without taxes is going to far exceed what you can do in a taxable brokerage account.
Right. I see. Yeah. So you were concerned about, hey, if I put all this money in, but in the short term, if you need to pull it out or access it, you're just worried about maybe getting it back and not understanding that you don't have to necessarily wait till you're 60, 65 to access that money and not worry about the tax part of it. So yeah, that's very, it is enlightening to think about it differently. Because I think there is a rule, right, where any money you put in a Roth IRA, you can take that money back out, right? And there's no implications, there's no penalty or anything.
That's exactly right. Roth contributions can be withdrawn at any time. And that's why when we convert these over to a Roth IRA, they now count as contributions. So you can withdraw those at any point. So yeah, you don't incur that 10% penalty that you would have if you just took it out of a long-term retirement account without using this kind of method. Yeah,
that's right. So yeah, that's great. So yeah, so that's a nice insight for people that are out there that want to retire early, to start taking that money that would be taxable, once you retire, when you have a very low income. So cool, man. So the light bulb goes off, but at this point, do you still have debt, or what kind of position are you in when the light bulb goes off and you're like, hey, I think I see a pathway, where you're at this point though?
Oh yeah, we did actually. We had about $80,000 in consumer debt.
When
we first realized this.
Does that mean credit card debt? What does that mean?
Yeah, credit card. So anything but the mortgage, basically. I don't count that as the debt.
Right.
Pool loan, some credit card debt, student loan debt as well. So it was all that debt that outside of a mortgage. And so when we first realized we had that debt, or we added it up, because the big thing is a lot of people try to invest their money before they pay off the debt. And the debt, in my opinion, should be treated as an emergency. It's ultimately holding you back. The true cost of debt is not just the interest rate; it's also the opportunity cost that you have by not being able to invest that money. And so that's why we immediately tried to tackle that debt as fast as possible, and we paid it off in just over a year. Once we really, because I couldn't believe it. But once you really want something, if you really want to pay off that debt, you will do whatever it takes to make that happen, and that's what we did.
Right. Well, kind of make it sort of a game for yourself. I think that's kind of a fun thing. Just make it a real goal, and then you're like, yeah, let's figure out how to do it. It's just kind of fun then, right?
Yeah, it was. Like we had all these toys. I mentioned our consumerism habits before. Everything laying around in our house that we had in the past, and we were able to just get rid of and start throwing at this debt left and right. Cutting back on the reoccurring expenses every month as well. We were able to throw more money that way. We actually downsized our life too. That's a big way that you can really increase your net worth right away or pay off debt. Is to just think about, are you living outside of your means? Why am I paying for a guest room in my house just in case, for that one time
right.
or 2 times a year someone comes to my house. Like I'm paying for someone for that to be used in the future. And I don't know, like once we kind of for the first time in our lives kind of challenged our standard of living to enough, then it was crazy how much money we were able to refocus at this debt. I work from home. We only need one vehicle. We've been living on one vehicle for a few years now, and there has not been one time where that's been a problem. Like it was a fear of mine, but you got things like ride sharing now.
Absolutely.
If it's an emergency, you can call 911 if you really need to. They'll be there probably faster than you can get to the hospital. Right. I mean, I don't know. We worry about all these things, but a lot of times, those rare emergency type of situations are costing us a lot of time, but ultimately costing us, our freedom and not just our money when we try to care too much about them. It's all about risk.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think it's a great point because. Right. Just like with your house, for example, you might want to have that spare bedroom for people to stay over when they come into town, et cetera. But that bigger house does cost so much more, and you have to have a loan on it, et cetera, where if people came in to visit you, I mean, you could all, if you wanted to stay together, just, rent a couple rooms at a local hotel that puts you together for those 2 or 3 times a year, and you'd probably be able to pay for that and still save money. It's just about thinking differently,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, or if you have kids, a lot of times the kids will sleep on the couch, right?
Yeah, right.
Give up the room.
Right, exactly. I mean, so it's just right. It's not. I mean, those were kind of maybe goals of or thoughts out there. I think maybe in the 20th century, when there was just a different, when the country was really expanding in sort of this post World War II phase, let's say, and there were these real channels and real thoughts about success and luxury and kind of how you wanted to live. But today, when everybody's connected and it's a technology-based society, I think those older notions or traditional notions, they don't carry as much weight, it seems to me, because there's so much opportunity to connect and enjoy things in a different way, or get turned on to different types of lifestyles or different information that's out there to allow you to work from home, for example. I mean, it's just kind of a different feeling these days. At least for me, it is. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so when people kind of get into this, I guess, materialism, you think about like when you're younger, young professional. I mean, the influences around you, like music was a huge inspiration to me when I was younger. And it kind of had a huge influence on the type of money I spent too, because I was big into rap music. I'm not gonna lie. And these celebrity endorsements and these, I mean, they don't realize how much, I mean, like some of these products that people can really get behind and push and sell and, recommend to these, young adults is really, really hard to see, but that's where a lot of the influence comes from. And we're affected by it because we think that's what's normal. We think that, that's the life. That's what, the rich life that we all want,
right,
the typical American dream. So that also has a large impact, as well. I mean, it was a huge influence on me when I was younger, because like I talk about in high school, it was all about like brands, like what brand, what clothes are you wearing, what brand, what logo is on your shirt, so to look nice when you're trying to impress someone, like even, the other sex knows this too. And they look for certain things in someone, they think that means something when it ultimately probably means the opposite about whether someone, is in debt or not in debt.
Right. Well, I mean, social proof is, that's how human beings work. It's sort of the currency of being a human being and how you size up, maybe someone new that you meet, et cetera. But once you sort of, I think, make the shift in your mind or the shift in your experience of, hey, if I'm different, if I'm willing to be different and not worry about the social proof part of society, meaning I don't have to have the polo shirt on or whatever it is, to fit in with this particular group. I think that it just opens up the world in many different ways, and it allows you to connect with other people that think that way. And there's this whole different sort of part of life and society that kind of has always gone on, probably, but it's just out there. And I guess that's the part of the society I find myself in too, where I like nice things and certain things, but I don't necessarily go with the flow, and I like thinking differently. It's probably part of my kind of science background. I like sitting back and observing and analyzing and those kind of things. So, okay, so you're getting a handle on your debt. You've got this idea that you're going to retire early. So where are you at with it? I mean, are you retired yet? Are you on schedule? What do things look like for you these days?
So we're almost 4 years out. Probably by the time this podcast comes out, we'll be about 4 years out from early retirement. I'm 30. Yeah, so I'll be 31 here shortly, and so 35 is the goal.
Wow,
we're on pace for it right now, so I mean it will happen.
Right.
It's just a matter of if we can speed it up even more, or if something, anything can happen during that time. If something drastic were to happen, that of course could affect it. But based on our lifestyle right now, that's the pace we're on for. So I mean it's just a matter of time, and we're kind of on autopilot until then. We've done everything up to the point of it's just waiting for our investments to hit a particular number. But that's the hard part too. When it's not too far away, you tend to try and think about it a lot, and so it's controlling that. Yeah, it's controlling the the emotions to kind of remind myself all the time to enjoy the present moment. Like enjoy the journey.
Absolutely.
I still want to be a great employee. I want to, perform with excellence. I mean, I'm thankful for my job at this, for the opportunity it can provide. And I'm a hard worker anyway. So it's not like this is really like giving me a whole, some people struggle with what's called, I guess, imposter syndrome, where they're going to this job and they just hate it until the day they can get out.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm trying to make sure I try to take in every moment along the way and not, realize or not, just wake up and be like, wow, it's gone, or who knows what can happen. I may not have the opportunity in the future to retire early, so I might as well enjoy what I have now.
Well, and it's just, I think the retirement early concept, I mean, I love it. It's just about income replacement, essentially, right? So once you have your income replaced with, passively through your investments, et cetera, now you can just move on to a different phase of life where you can, dive into your entrepreneurial projects more deeply, or spend more time with your family. I mean, your young age, you're not going to be sitting around on the couch. That's not what retirement's about, at least not in my mind,
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. The reason why I still say the word retirement, or I can't look, I actually really excited when people ask me what I do to just say I'm retired.
Right.
But the main reason why I still stick to that word is because if you think about it, I will not do anything that I don't want to do. It's not fun or entertaining to me. I'm not going to run a startup business, or if I choose to work or do something, it's no different from me choosing to go surfing or to go play with my family. Anything I do at that point, whether it be work or not, is really strictly for the point of entertainment, or because I enjoy doing it. So in my mind, you've heard that probably saying, if you enjoy what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. So that's kind of where I kind of changed that. If you enjoy what you're doing and who you do it with and where you do it, and outside of limited vacation time and sick days, then I think you'll never work another day in your life. So that's kind of what it means to me. There's other terms out there too, like financial freedom, financial independence. This whole community I talked about earlier, the term FIRE, being financially independent and retiring early. They kind of combine those two words because people call it different things, and it means different things to different people. That's completely fine.
Right. Like
some people don't like the word early retirement, and that's fine, but I love it. And financial independence or financial freedom to me makes me think I can buy, everything or anything. Like money is no object.
I see.
Which isn't what I consider. So that's why I like the word early retirement. But like I said, to different people it means different things.
Yeah.
And you touched on something earlier that was really kind of stood out to me, which is the ability to reach your full potential. I don't think so. This kind of goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. the basic needs of your life to eventually reach self-actualization, where you can, be the best you, I guess, or be creative. And so the second level up is about safety, and it's called, it's abundant in resources, or security of resources.
Right.
So in other words, that your resources are covered. And to me, resources, that's finances, that's money, to have that security of money. It's not secure if you're an employee and you're living paycheck to paycheck, or you can't just leave, and it's not secure. So at the point where you reach early retirement, it becomes secure. Then you can start actually getting up the other levels of, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is love and belonging and self-esteem and self-actualization, creativity. Like you probably haven't even unlocked your full potential until you don't have to even think about money. Like that's a really cool place to be.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what's so interesting about, I think these days with technology, the information that's out there, like, finding the right podcast, for example, of, hey, I'm interested in this topic. Where do I go to find it? Or who are the people that are interested in talking about it? Who can I reach out to like learn about this stuff? This was just a short time ago. I mean, before, in the 90s, maybe, before the internet was really widespread, it was hard to find a lot of this information. It was hard to find your tribe. It was hard to find people who thought like you. It was hard to even know what to think like. That's why I asked you that question, like, how did you get interested in it? You mentioned like reading, the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss and other financial bloggers that you stumbled upon, because those stimulating thoughts make a huge difference. It's really about mindset and what you uncover as you go through your life. So, we are living, this to me, it's just like the tip of the iceberg here of how society and how your mind, your thought process can change, because now you have access to all this information, especially from a young age, like your kids. It's incredible. You're going to, they can be 10 years old and really like dig in deeply to some particular topic they're interested in, like the universe has never seen before. It's really kind of blows my mind when I think about it.
Yeah, it's remarkable. The speed that we can obtain information or get access to it is just increasing for, both good and bad reasons.
Yeah, right. Well, there's always a upside and a downside, right?
Right.
But yeah, so let me ask you about the entrepreneurial part or the projects you've been working on. So what are your interests in that regard, and what were the projects? What were they based around? Were they based around software, your technical background, or it was a totally different type of project?
Yeah, real young. It was clothing companies around surfing and fitness. When I was just kind of getting into my career and had this money, and I was trying to, figure out how to use some of this extra money for businesses, and it never really panned out. And then eventually, it was using my software skills as I got better. Every company really since then has been about building some kind of software or website to try and sell some kind of product, and usually has always kind of involved some other kind of partner. And I think that's the hard part, is it takes a long time to write some good software. And I kept writing this software, and then no one would be there, ready to buy it. Right. And I kind of relied on someone else. Yeah, I've always relied on someone else to do kind of the marketing side of things, or the business, quote unquote, side of things.
Right.
And it never happened. So, I think there's a lot of people that are really capable of writing these, amazing software products that aren't getting seen because they don't have the marketing skills. And it's a shame, because a lot of time in the past on some of these startup ventures I've had has been wasted because of it. I mean, I've learned things from them,
right.
But now I'm actually taking it for the first time in my life. I'm actually taking a different approach to being an entrepreneur, and I'm going to eventually get to software in my current business venture on the side, which has been in this personal finance space. So I'm actually owning the whole life cycle. So considering or buying into the world of bootstrapping. So
I see.
Just using as much as my time to learn all the skills necessary to do the full gamut, the traffic source at the front with the podcast, or Twitter, or learn the social media stuff myself, learn the hard things, learn the marketing side, on the sales page, learn how to convert people, get people on your email list, learn how to not only build the back end technology, but also learn everything from the front of the funnel all the way back. So that's been really helpful to to own all that myself and do it at a most minimum cost possible. Because remember, I'm planning for early retirement here, so I know
Right.
that any money I spend on my business, there's no guarantee that it's going to take off. So it could potentially be slowing down early retirement. So, I'm very cautious of making sure I use my time for these kinds of things and learn the skills necessary. And it's been awesome. I really have enjoyed taking that approach, and also like MVPing, my product as little as possible. Where now it's
Right.
actually an information product at first, which is just an ebook.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was the simplest way for me to translate all the information I've been talking about in the podcast and to my network, and just put it all down into a document that I could give to people and sell as a first product. And then now I'm actually working on an online course as my next step to, again, provide some kind of information product, get people interested, really provide something to my traffic source that they can use at a decent price. And then I think the next step after that will actually be software. So rather than waste months and months trying to build this software initially, I'm really working to build a community first, and then figure out, for the right reasons too, not only for mine but theirs. Figure out the right product that they need. And I want to give them something that is really valuable to them. I'm not trying to mislead anyone here.
Right.
It's all about, the ultimate goal of this company is to teach more people about personal finance. I don't need this company to work. I just enjoy being an entrepreneur. I'm already going to retire early, but this is cool, like figuring out all this and then being able to build something that people will use that will reach and help more people. Like that's a really cool, fulfilling feeling that, is kind of keeping me motivated.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I think if, people were listening closely to just those last few minutes, that was like a roadway paved with gold, man, what you just laid down. I mean, this is, it's really a great outlook and recipe for trying to start and build a business, trying to understand the market pain points and what people are searching for, what you have to give, being self-aware and saying, hey, this is what I like, this is what I have to offer, this is the value I have, but trying to listen to people's voices out there as well and create this community, understand what people are looking for, and figure out how you can serve it up. Because once you figure out how to serve it up, you can execute on the back end because you have those technical skills. But putting the cart before the horse doesn't always work, and that I've experienced the same thing in the especially in the earlier days of my career of being in the technology business and working in telecom, for example, where the market's exploding, everybody needs a lot of stuff, but I was really in this bunch of real technical guys that didn't have, almost weren't interested in the real market that was out there. They were interested in the technology. And so they'd make these technologies and they'd run around searching for a solution. That's just the way it was, where it works a little bit better if you kind of think about it the other way around. What are the problems out there to really be solved, and where can you provide a nice solution for them? So I think it's great. So I think it's a great kind of pivot that you realized about yourself, that you had to wait a second, I need to change the game up, and try to figure this thing out on a different level. And when you do that, I think strategically, at least, for me, I'm going through that same process, and I can hear it in your voice that once you realize how important that is and how complex it can be, it's still really very interesting, even being a technical person, right? Because historically, you haven't really been a marketing guy.
Exactly.
So that's what's fun about it for me too. Like for me, it's kind of, I look at the world in terms of sort of, overall trends, technology trends, and it really informs me in terms of my investment side, speaking about, retiring early and such. And that's given me leverage to really ramp up my portfolio because I understand the human behavioral trends. It's not about technology. It's about what people are going to do with the technology, or are they going to accept the technology, for example, and what are they really going to do with it? What's the value that it's really providing? So early on, I would get distracted by the technology.
All right, how much Bitcoin do you have? Come on.
Yeah, I do have some Bitcoin, because
yep,
because it's probably the right solution for a lot of different parts of the world. But not the U.S. economy necessarily, but also it's gonna sort of penetrate the banking system where there's a lot of inefficiency or a lot of fees charged and all those kinds of things. So when you really look at, does it make sense? Does it serve a purpose? Does it serve a need? It serves all of those things. It's not just about the blockchain technology, which is interesting. It's a way to maybe distribute a single point of risk. Take that idea away, so maybe it's less risky. but it's really serving a need. So that's the way I look at it in terms of just the human behavior part of it. How much Bitcoin do you have?
0.
Oh, 0? Okay.
Which is weird. Being a techie, I thought about mining my own in the early days, but I never got around to it because I was working on some.
Right, I got you. I don't think I'd go into mining, but I do look at the. It's interesting to me just because it's one of those things that is a lever. So I behaviorally wise, this is it's kind of just how I look at the world. I'm sure you know Shopify. You know that company? Do you know that software, Shopify? Yeah, e-commerce. So they're a payment gateway for e-commerce stores, and so they accept Bitcoin. So Japan has sanctioned Bitcoin. You can buy anything in Japan, I think, with Bitcoin now. And it's just a matter of time before Amazon decides to take Bitcoin directly, for example. You can always buy. You can already buy stuff with Bitcoin on Amazon, but it's through a third party right now. So I just think it's now another cryptocurrency could pop up and take the game away from Bitcoin, et cetera. But the concept is going to remain, I think. And so for me, for a little piece of my portfolio, not much, it's a valid risk, But yeah, I'm not putting my whole portfolio in there. That'd be a little crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where I'm at too. Yeah, I kind of take 5% of my portfolio for speculation. And try to keep it there, nothing more.
Exactly.
And so we're on similar lines there.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm so close to early retirement now that it's every risk is even more now. Like it's like
right.
I think about how much risk am I really willing to take on, especially when I have to fund retirement. All these things sound great, and that's the problem though. By the time you heard about it, it's too late.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I like Warren Buffett's approach in terms of just getting you focused when you're actually doing investments with equities and those kinds of things. He's more of a buy and hold. If this was all your money and you really had to put it all in and couldn't afford to lose it, what would you really do?
Exactly.
That really gets you focused. It's like, no, I wouldn't put it in Bitcoin if that was the case. If it was all my money and I had to put it all in and the goal was not to lose money, that's this first rule of investing, don't lose money, what would you put it in? That gets you focused off the exotic technologies into GE or Procter and Gamble or some company that's really going to be here 100 years from now. So that's just my take on the Warren Buffetts of the world. But so all right, so now you're still working. You're a few years out from retirement, which is incredible, and you have these ideas that you're starting to execute on with personal finance. Sorry if I can't even say it, personal finance, and trying to turn other people onto it, which I think is really great, kind of providing value. But I have a couple questions for you before we finish up here, get towards the end of our time. And this is very interesting to ask you because you're a very technical guy and you're into software and all these things, and the way you see the world today. So with regard to the the ever-changing digital landscape that's out there, is there one thing, and maybe it's big or small, that you're struggling with lately, or that's really you see as like, I have to understand this more or watch out for this? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I'm finally starting to understand, the regulation, and
okay.
I've always been a person that would be screaming and saying, this damn regulation is holding us back, like we could be so much further ahead if we didn't have to deal with all this, red tape everywhere. Technology, even though it's, where it is today, we should be so much further along with our technology. And now I guess I'm finally starting to actually be fearful of technology where, being a techie, I never was in the past. I embrace it, but at the same time now I'm starting to have some fear. I used to, actually, I've read it. I don't know if you've ever heard of Singularity, old Ray Kurzweil.
Yep.
But talking about the eventually merging of humans with technology, and we'll really be cyborg. We'll have nanotechnology going through our bloodstream and fighting off viruses. And his prediction for that was 2040. Because his big thing is he never wants to die, and he doesn't feel anyone should have to. And he feels technology can prevent someone from dying. And so now, it's like I've never been so fearful, I guess, of like passwords and things getting hacked and like as crazy, but it's getting more and more and more common, in these cyber warfare stuff is being more relevant. It's like in the news, like, just I can't trust anything anymore. Like I don't watch the news anymore because it's like, or some articles online, because like the comments, there's ways in social media to make people think one way. Like it could be Russia doing it in the background, right? You don't know. You can't trust any source now, or whoever's influenced to put that media up there. You don't know if it's swinging one way or the other way in politics. It's like it seems like everybody's controlled by some other entity in the background. So I have to kind of, really trust everything in my, from every, my own judgment now going forward in technology. And, you heard about the Equifax, what was it? The cybersecurity hack that went down and everything. Data breach. There you go. Yeah. So I guess it's the fear of technology advancement. With I was big into the learning more about IoT and drones and stuff, and it's like we could do so much with this stuff, but also it will destroy us at some point. I mean, it will. Yeah, like even if you think about it, like with singularity, okay, well the human race is gone if we're all part of technology. We're not humans anymore. We're cyborgs.
Well, right.
So,
Yeah.
So I don't know, like that's kind of a weird concept, but especially me being a techie for the first time in my life, I'm actually like interested in moving more away from it, from my complete life, and someone completely knowing every little single thing about me, even in technology, because someone's always going to have access to that. There's always going to be a backdoor or some way that someone has figured out how to get that information. I already accept that my information is all over the internet.
Yeah, it's out there.
If anyone really wanted to know something about me or my social, everything's out there. So I've kind of accepted that, and but now I guess it's the danger of the level of how that stuff's going to be used is just going to keep increasing over the years, especially in how fast it's going to be done as technology and speeds increase.
Right. Well, I agree with a lot of what you said there, and really that's kind of part of the impetus for the podcast here that I'm doing, is to try to kind of raise people's attention to if they're not paying attention or haven't been, or if they're struggling with how to deal with all this stuff. I just want to talk about it and maybe come up with some solutions eventually, or some guides of how to navigate through these waters, because things are changing fast. You just kind of have to be aware of what's going on. Taste a little bit of these things. You can't just blow off and run away from technology. But like you said, you don't want to be necessarily, in the middle of technology 100% all the time anymore either, because it is much more prevalent than it used to be. So, yeah, very interesting. So, on this note, in terms of what you're feeling of how you might want to change, maybe how historically how much technology has been in your life, what's maybe one tip or technique that's helped you so far in terms of turning your mind or reinventing or continually to reinvent yourself? What seems to work for you?
I mean, it's really a concept of embracing change. Being a software engineer in particular, there's always new technology coming out in that industry alone, and you have to kind of embrace it. And you have to, to be where I am in my career at a senior level of software engineer, at 30 right now. It's because of my appetite for change and being willing to dive into some and put my head out there and say, I know things are changing, when everybody else is fearful of change and wants to reject it. I've been the one to kind of embrace it and try and just figure out how to roll with it. That's throughout my life. If something's not working, at first I remember in my relationship with my wife, we're two different people, and we have certain things that we want to do by ourselves and we want to do with each other, and certain ways we do things. But, ultimately in a marriage, you kind of have to figure out how to mold, and you have to be able to bend a little bit. And the more I've kind of learned to change, not only, as a person, I've also in technology, what's not working in our life, like, holy crap, we have this great American life set up for us, a typical dream. We got this huge house and everything. And are we really willing to give that all up and go for it? And since we have, it's been awesome. So just that appetite for change, when something's not working, recognizing it right away, and talking, because there's always a solution. There's always a way. Like, anyone can take control of their life. You don't have to ever stay in the situation you're in. You completely own it. And I don't want anyone to ever tell me that otherwise, So embracing change, loving it, I don't know. Yeah, just like change is a good thing. I mean, it's not gonna stop. The only thing constant is change. You've heard of that before. So you just gotta roll with it, love it, and learn to live with it because it's not going nowhere. And that's a good thing. I mean, it's just human nature. We change. I was like, I started a CrossFit workout, right? And I was like, oh, I'm never going to want to do anything different in my whole life ever again. CrossFit is the ultimate workout plan. and
Right.
What do you know? I don't do CrossFit anymore because for some reason, you do something, it gets bored after a while or it's not working anymore and you got to change. So it's just a part of life. You got to continuously reinvent.
Right. Well, I think that was a really kind of key point you just mentioned there is understanding that some things you eventually might get bored of and you have to keep changing or, taking a break and going back to it, et cetera, to keep your own interest there. That's just how humanity works. It's just how the human brain works, So like kind of breaking that up and just being open to the change and understanding that like, yes, change is coming. It's always coming. And if you're able to embrace it, I think it's a better stance to take than always saying, no, I don't want to change. I got my little thing over here and I'm just going to bury my head under the covers, That's not a good place to be.
Don't quit change.
Right, don't quit change. I love that. Don't quit change. All right, that'll be the quote when I send this out. I love that. Nice. That's cool. Don't quit change. Hey, so Sean, if people are interested in finding more out about you and checking out your what's your website? You have it's early retirement website and some of your businesses that you're developing. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, earlyretirementroadmap.com is kind of where the different products and story behind me for planning for early retirement are. More importantly, if you want to check out the Two Frugal Dudes podcast, it's just me and another middle-class guy talking about how we're managing our finances in our lives. There's this thing in there we do. It's the Frugal Cashmates community, because we have this corny saying that we're all cashmates in the never-ending school of personal finance.
All right.
But, hop in the community. I mean, we just want people to be in the community. We want to help more people. So, just join the Frugal Cashmates community. And in there, you can ask any questions you have. You can find anything else out that you want to. It's, everything probably to where I am today is attributed to someone, surrounding myself with the right people that has gotten me to where I am today. So I think community is so important to that. And so I recommend anyone that's, not around the people they should be, start surrounding yourself with those kinds of people. And if it's personal finance, come hang out with us. Right
on, man. Sounds great. Okay. Well, Sean, it was great talking to you and I'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
All right. Thanks, man. Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at jimreinventionrevolution.com. See you next time, and remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of.